evening. This is 320th episode of Foxy Gyan Pravah series, which is a unique initiative of Foxy President Dr. Sunita Tandulwadkar. And I am your host, Dr. Kiran Pandey, Chairperson Medical Education Committee. And our guest is Dr. Shweta Adatia, a neurologist, educator, and author based in Dubai. The title of the podcast today, which we have selected, is a very unique one: Sharper Minds, Fuller Lives, Brain Health Strategies for Doctors and Women 40 plus. So before we actually go for the podcast, I would love to introduce our president, Dr. Sunita. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce you, madam.
Kiran, we don't need my introduction. It is
Madam,
your
two,
time with
madam,
Dr. Shweta ji.
yeah,
Please.
madam, two, three lines because Dr. Shweta doesn't know and the audience also has to know it. You are a clinician par excellence, and you really embodies the belief that medicine evolves every day, so must the doctor. Equally reflected it is in your work, and your another powerful philosophy: healthy aging is not about adding life years to the life, but life and clarity to those years. And that
Yes.
is why I selected this topic. You are a pioneer in stem cell. You are an eminent laparoscopic surgeon. You are a clinician par excellence, and your regenerative approaches, the cognitive vitality, the hormonal balance, and overall well being of women, which you work on, is very, very important. And thank you, madam, for giving us this opportunity. For the whole year, we have been interacting so many persons. I would like you to say few words of blessings to us,
Thank you.
and then we introduce the.
Thank you, Kiran ji. Thank you, Kiran ji, for one, always dependable, always remarkable work as a chairperson you have done in Foxy. And I'm glad to have you in my team. You
Thank
are a big asset to my team. Dr. Shweta ji, thank you so much for taking out your valuable time. And Kiran, thank you for introducing Dr. Shweta ji to us. She has sent me your CV, ma'am, and you are into the stroke management. And though I'm a gynecologist in a regenerative medicine, we are managing a lot of stroke patient in our regenerative department, and it has a fantabulous result. So definitely, maybe later from Kiran, I'll take your number and we'll exchange lot of cases, and let's see we can work together in this field, because Dubai has opened up now the stem cells quite legally, and our work for 10 years into this industry is huge. By doing a 900 plus near 1,000 cases now, I think stroke we must have done by now 50 cases. And almost, I can say, in 99% of the cases, we got a successful result. And it's so rewarding that your patient who had a paralysis, who was bedridden, and now within no time it is walking. The same day they walk, ma'am, the same day. And that is what the puzzle is. What we do the stem cells into the spinal cord, intrathecal, and what happens that in 4 hours patient can walk. This is the science to be evolved. And I have Dr. Bajpai from Udaipur. I don't know whether you know him. He is also very research minded neurophysician, neuroscientist, doing a interventional neurology, and we are trying to do work together in Udaipur University. We can work together even with your patients, ma'am. Let's explore. But today is your podcast and your discussion with Dr. Kiran. And the pattern is I join the viewers link to listen to both of you, and you both only will be in this. So it's lovely to meet you through. And Kiran, it is your responsibility to see both each other later. Thank you,
Yes,
Shweta
yes.
ji. Thank you once
Thank you.
again
Thank you so much,
for.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's work not only for the health of a woman, but health of a mankind. I feel if we can be of
Absolutely.
any help to anyone who really is living a very painful or disabled life, it is our responsibility and duty to make his life healthier and happier. So we
Absolutely.
will connect definitely.
All right,
Thank
ma'am.
you,
Thank you.
Kiran, once more.
Thank
And I
you.
join the viewers link and I
Sure,
enjoy both of you.
sure,
Thank you.
madam, and
Thank
I'll share the
Thank you.
number, and I'm sure you, Dr. Shweta,
Yes,
will.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Glad. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
So, thank you,
Thank you.
madam, for your
Thank you, Shwetaji. Thank
kind
you.
words. And now is the time to introduce our guest to the audience. Dr. Shweta Adatia is an eminent neurologist, as I told you, based in Dubai, and she's known for her work in stroke care, migraine. She has done MBBS, MD in internal medicine, DNB in neurology, and MBA from the University of Cambridge, and the fellowship of the American College of Physicians. She represents a new generation of clinicians, thought leaders. A recipient of 13 gold medals, her academic excellence is matched by a depth of insight. And at the heart of her work lies the belief, which I feel is there, the brain is not just an organ to be treated, it is a system to be understood, aligned, and respected. Dr. Shweta uniquely connects brain physiology, and this is the part which actually impressed us me very much, that she connects it with the ancient spiritual principles of awareness, intention, balance, and our ancient science. And she's helping people move from the mental overload to cognitive clarity. Through Decoding Brain and Limitless Brain Lab, she translates complex neuroscience into the practical tools for daily living. And as it is beautifully said, that when science explains how the brain works and spirituality teaches us how to live, the result is not just a better cognition, it is a conscious living for which we all want to focus. Dr. Shita is a TEDx speaker and an author of Future Ready Now. She has delivered more than 200 plus workshops across 5 continents, empowering not only doctors and professionals, also middle aged life women to live sharper, calmer, and more purposeful driven lives. Let us all join together in warmly welcoming Dr. Shweta Adatia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And namaskar to everybody, whoever is listening to that. Thank you, Dr. Sunita ji, for those kind words. Yes, I think I resonate with what you said. Hindi wala safar sabko karate hain. We should stop the English suffering, and that is what we are here for. So let's all join hands together when it comes to any health. Everything is super important. May it be brain, may it be mind, may it be gynecological health, anything. So I think the most important thing is for me particularly is when I'm talking to doctors, I strongly feel that we are the pioneers of healthy living. And I ask a lot of doctors and other people also, what is the meaning of the word doctor? And people, general people would say, oh, treating or healing. But the meaning of the word doctor is to dossier, which means to teach. So I always am grateful for any such teaching opportunity where I can speak to all of you and learn as well. So thank you so much for this kind invitation.
Thank you. Thank you. It is really our pleasure. Personally, as I still discussed, that I have been listening to your podcast and was very much impressed by the ideas and concerns you have regarding the brain. That is
Yeah.
the most important organ. So now let us formally ask certain questions to help our audience. And the most important, let's start with, because our topic belongs to that. What happens to the brain of women, especially in 40s, 50s, or more than that? What happens? What changes are occurring physiologically, which are
Right.
we are concerned with and which we should take care?
Right. So even before we go to the women, let's just see brain in general. First of all, what really fascinates me is in the last trimester, when a baby's brain is forming, there is 250,000 of a brain cell forming per second. It's just astronomical and amazing the way in which the brain reorganizes itself. By the age of 3, 5, there is pruning, which means all the unnecessary cells are gone, and then whatever is needed, and then slowly, the synaptic formation, the connections start to form by the age of 10, 20, 30. The peak learning ability comes by the age of 25. The prefrontal cortex is formed, which is right here. Now, after the age of 40, for everybody, there is a little bit of a shrinking which is happening. So, 5% of the brain every decade starts to shrink. It's a normal atrophy. It's basically the nature's way of reorganizing the entire ecosystem of the brain. Now, particularly for women, I feel that we are privileged when it comes to the brain health, and especially the time around the age of 40 to 50, and particularly as we talk of menopause as well. There are some more changes happening because of the estrogen and progesterone receptor and the changes in the hormonal milieu and ecosystem which is happening. So we do expect some behavioral changes, we do expect some cognitive challenges, we do expect some memory challenges. But it's always, again, I strongly come from a belief that it is about only mindset. Although the brain is doing that, but what is it that we can do to actually stall it? To even, in fact, just make the game reverse. So the beauty is neuroplasticity, as ma'am was also saying. There's enough, nature has given enough secrets where you can regenerate your brain cells as well, regenerate every single synaptic circuit that you want. So technically, yes, physiologically, there is a atrophy and a downhill progression of the brain which is happening, but intentionally, all of us can stall it, can hold it. And that is where we go back to the ancient wisdom. That is where we go back to the principles which have been known from time immemorial, and start to live with that intention and make changes.
Yes. So, but do you think these memory lapses are more prone in the perimenopausal or menopausal women? More in women than men?
Hmm. So men also do suffer from memory, but let's understand the men's tasks in general and women's tasks. Now, women is generally responsible for multiple tasks. There is also home tasks which the women is doing. If the women is working also, the women is also doing some shopping. Women in general has two hands full, generally. And the men are generally wired for doing monofocal tasks. So the impact or the outcome that we see for issues of memory, or the brunt, is slightly more known in women as compared to men. But we all know that there's something called andropause. There's something where there is exact same physiological process in the brains of the men also, which is happening. There is a testosterone reduction, which is also giving rise to the memory issues as well on the whole. But when it comes to women, the estrogen forms a very important role for cognitive health, for the cognitive well-being, for the memory. And that is where working memory particularly bears the maximum brunt. Now, memory, if we look a little bit differently, from the lens of the beauty of what memory has, just think for a little while, just as an experiment, what if there was no memory at all? And what really happens, and what is the impact? If there was a significant memory loss, what can be the impact? थोड़ा सा सोचते हैं, and let the audience also think a little bit, because memory is not something which is a everyday task and it's serving me. Memory is doing something way beyond psycho spiritually. So let's understand from that angle what really is memory. क्या करती है? If the memory is lost, I lose my identity as well, right?
Yes,
If memory is lost, all my experiences which I have gathered in my subconscious is also lost.
loss.
My memory as an association with a certain relationship is lost. The way in which I perform my work is lost. So it's of a significant challenge. And that's why, nowadays also the overall rates of Alzheimer's dementia has increased. And it pains me a lot because off late, just a couple of weeks down the lane, I had a patient diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia, 45 years old. Now,
Oh,
this was never heard, right? 60, 70. We never had 42-year-old walk in with memory issues. This guy was a consultant in McKinsey, And he started to take his bag, and the wife says, "Where are you going?" He says, "I have a meeting in Coimbatore." And the wife says, this meeting was 2 years back. Just imagine what sort of a jolt the life can bring. So all of us have to take memory seriously, because we live in an era where we have actually overwhelmed our brains, we have overburdened our brains, and particularly around the perimenopausal, the beautiful estrogen, which otherwise will help us in the prefrontal cortex functioning, in the working memory, is also not available. So it's sort of, a game which we will have to play against the natural race.
Yes. So that means what I could gather from your talk, that chronic stresses, the multitasking, and also the emotional overload which women are getting because they do impact brain wiring
Yes, for sure.
significantly. So
Yes,
now
yes, yes.
that's very, very important and really shocking to hear this, that 45-year-old person has Alzheimer's. Scary, in fact, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, actually. And the data says that we are going to have 1600% increase in the coming 2 decades of Alzheimer's dementia if we don't do something about it right now. And when it comes to what we need to do about it, we'll of course discuss it. But the very first important point is memory is something which has to be taken very seriously. So yes, there can be, as you rightly mentioned, lapses during the perimenopausal period, which is okay because that's expected to happen. It's like a little wire. If, for example, this is a wire and then there is an electricity which is going, but there are breaks in that electricity. So I do expect some names to be forgotten, some little working memory issues to come in, but largely, barring this, there should be a very good and conscious effort to see that the memory circuits are preserved. Now, memory is also a little bit, in terms of the physiology of it, very interesting. So we think memory is only about learning. Something, for example, I ask you a number. That's why, the 10-digit phone numbers are there, because that is our working memory, the digit span, what we say. But whenever a number is spoken, I immediately start to visualize that number. I immediately start to see them dancing in my brain. So memory is not just about something listening or something just parking in the brain. So many areas of the brain get lighted up. There's so many interactions which is happening quickly. The brain is also checking for the emotional response. The brain is checking for what was there in the past. The brain has to connect the past and the future. So at one time, when anything is spoken about memory, quickly all the brain cells become active. So it is like a dance of many, many neurons which is happening all together at once.
Yes, so which is, I mean, just focused or projected as memory, but lot is going behind that.
Yes,
What is happening is very, very important.
correct.
So, any early signs of declining memory which one should take care or which should not be ignored according to you? That is very important.
Yes. A very
Audience should
important
know.
question that you raised, because everybody should have these red flags in place. Now, the commonest complaint that we hear is, "Oh, naam bhul gaya." I was trying to remember the name, and I was trying to remember the name, but that's a very common finding, because the parietal atrophy happens for all of us. That's where the atrophy sort of starts to happen. In a way, the nature is trying to say that whatever things can be redundant, we can just let go of it. So the names is one of the things that nature considers that's a redundant thing, so it's okay. A lot of people stress a lot about forgetting the names and inability to remember, but immediately faces can be recollected, the voice can be recollected, so it's totally all right. You don't need to stress your brain out for that particular purpose. But the biggest red flag would be that repeatedly it is starting to impact the quality of your life. For example, I had an important project. There was an important deadline. Completely forget about it. I promised somebody something, let's say 2 days prior, which is still within the short term memories bracket, and I completely forget about it. I start to mess up with my accounts, start to go, orientation becomes a problem, where I don't remember that I came here, but don't remember why did I come here to this place. I have to keep revisiting my notes. And oftentimes, I've seen particularly women who come to us during the period of 45 to 55. the hormonal crash is there's so many physiological changes which is happening, so a lot of these symptoms which I mentioned may also get amplified, so they can have these symptoms as symptoms. But is it impacting the quality of life? Is there something which you missed terribly because that symptom was there? Then that is the biggest red flag. And currently we are very fortunate also, if at all this memory decline turns into Alzheimer's, we have now medications for that. So we can have monoclonal antibodies, anti-amyloid antibodies, which we have. So the right diagnosis, the earliest time is also extremely important. We also have got an FDA approved blood marker, which was never the case. We were always talking and then we were doing some assessments digitally to understand if it's a significant dementia, but now, we don't need to worry about it. So women in particular, if it during this time a little bit of this is part of the perimenopausal process, but anything beyond which is impacting the quality of life, a big red flag.
So you mean to say, just like sometimes it happens, you think of doing, we are going to, like go and stand before your almirah, and then you think, why I have come here, or you go to the kitchen and go to the open the fridge, and then you don't know, remember why you have come here, then you go back and come back again, and then is it also one a smaller
No,
one
not
or
so
a
much, because
significant
this
one?
is more to do with attention also. This is more to do because the first stage in memory is attention. If I attend, then I register, then I code it, then I store it, and then I retrieve it. So the attention, if my attention span is a problem, which is a lot of problem with all of us, right? So many things are happening. There's social media which is happening. There is normal media which is happening. There's so many stimulations from all over. So attention, if I did not attend to that stimuli well, then that means attention is actually a problem and not really the memory. So multiple times, if this starts to happen, if it's once in a while, it's perfectly fine. You were in the middle of something. That is when the problem comes. Now, a lot of people, the biggest problem in this age group and generally is also sleep. So most people don't get enough sleep. They're stressed out. Their diet is messed up. There's lots of emotional pressure. I mean, midlife is always a turning point, right? We always think that the brain which served me in the last decade is the same brain which is going to serve me in the next decade. I think this is where all of us go wrong. And that's why they say, at the turning point of 40 or turning point of 50, that turning point is sharp because the brain is suddenly trying to, contain the processes of extra other things that you were able to do. So the brain itself is naturally recalibrating itself to sort of prioritize the things that you need. Now, in that, if we are not conscious enough that I need to sleep well, I need to have my stress controlled, I need to have my multivitamins taken properly, I need to make sure that my phytoestrogen or my natural estrogens, etc., is taken in one way or the other, and I'm making sure that all my thyroid and so many metabolic conditions are all taken care, then it's okay. So it's sort of a testing time, let's put it that way.
Okay. So, I mean, any for the audience purpose, what are the top, you can say, science-based habits, certain
Hmm.
things which can help into the improving or consolidating the memory? You said it, of course, in some few words like attention and other things. Can you more
Yes.
clearly enumerate
Sure,
them?
sure. And this is one of our major work at the Limitless Brain Lab, which we do. So people, first of all, have to understand what is brain fog. Brain fog is just a little bit of lack of clarity, getting overwhelmed with stimulation. And then there is the memory decline, which has to be understood. And then, of course, the full-blown dementia, which has to be understood. So most times it is often the brain fog. And at the level of the brain fog, we need to have sharper mind, as you said. We need to have clarity of thinking. Our decision-making process should be good. Complex information should be very quickly understood. The reading speed needs to be maintained. The attention and focus has to be maintained. So technically, if we talk about the brain, pretty much all the areas of the brain have to be maintained as status quo. As so the prefrontal cortex is important for decision making, for executive functions, for working memory, for speech. If we go to the limbic system, it is important for processing of emotions, for anger management, for a lot of processes around irritability, stimulus response, stimulus reaction, and then parietal and the back, motor, so posterior functions are important for visual memory, for comprehension, for storing of things which are for the past. So all of this needs to be protected. Now, what is the simple formula which we all can apply and which we should apply? In fact, this does not apply to the older group of 40 or 50. This should start way early on. I think by the age of 25, I feel this should be a part of our life. We have very simplified it, and it's called movers. M for meditation, O for oxygenation, V for visualizing, E for exercise, R for reading something which is positive or mantra if people love mantras, and S is for scribing, which is not serving, because most times we keep our emotions inside. We never allow catharsis to happen. If we vote, even to the doctors, whoever is listening, and say, have you ever put out your thought on paper and just let it go? Most people would say no. But it has been shown that such catharsis has a very important role to play. Rather than the emotions being processed inside, the emotions start to get processed outside and makes a world of a difference to the brain. So having 5 minutes of each of these components of meditation, oxygenation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing is all that everybody of us needs. That's it.
So, I will just ask, maybe it is not a, you have already explained it, but I would still like to say, somewhere it is said the multitasking is good. And the other way, now it's, I mean, some thoughts coming that multitasking is affecting, putting the overload on the brain. So, I
Yeah.
mean, as a neurologist, what do you think? We should,
So it's a beautiful question that you're asking. Now, multitasking technically is not possible for the brain. It is only task shifting which is happening. I complete this task and then I go to the other one and then I go to the other one. Now, there are people who can have this parallelly. So, for example, they have multiple tabs which are open and then they are answering the phone and then they are doing something else and all. Technically, the brain is incapable of doing that, all of them efficiently. So, there would be some efficiency compromise in one way or the other, which is happening when we are tasking like that, which is in the essence of multitasking. But what should be our job? We should be very, very smart with the brain. Whenever there is a task at hand, and if there is a start and an end point which is defined to the brain, and that is called also the Parkinson's law. It's a beautiful law in the brain. What that law states is that, for example, I have 30 minutes of discussion with you. If I give my brain that I have this 30 minutes to complete all the things that I have to say or write or whatever be it, the brain will take that command and be very, very attentive or hyper attentive, hyper focused, and complete that task. So having those little bouts of attention and completion is rather better than trying to do it the wrong way.
okay. So, I mean, don't focus on the multitasking much. Of course, something comes in between, that's okay. I mean, like, specifically, this is very important for professionals like us.
Hmm.
And these days, the digital world, when you are doing something, the message comes and your attention gets
Yes.
diverted, or a phone call comes,
Yeah.
and you forget that where you have kept the key, because
Correct.
suddenly two, three things are coming. So,
Correct. And the science says that it takes 20 to 25 minutes to refocus and come back. And that's why I think as a professional, I have done a very simple formula. I think prior off studio, you were asking me that, there's ton of things which are happening in our lives. Limitless Brain Lab has outreach of now 1 billion impressions on internet. We have 25 million views. We get invited pretty much every single day. There's something or other which is happening. Parallelly, right now, 15 researches are happening as we are speaking, global collaborations. So to just make my brain's life easy, what I have done is I have developed something called the multi-boxing pattern. So I do my day boxing, I do my hour boxing, and my time boxing. So it's like a DHT formula, for very simply. So I know exactly my these 2 days are only for research. I know exactly these 2 days are clinical, and I know exactly these 2 days are for my growth and reading and whatever I need. Now, in that those days also you do hour boxing. For example, 5 hours is clinical practice, that's it. Then you don't intermix any of other phone calls or your notifications or something that comes in. The more efficiently that we are able to pack it for the brain also gives you a better result. So stress, I think in general people get stressed about the multiple actions that they have to do, and this is so commonly heard from all our patients, right? The बहुत कुछ है करने को, I don't get time. It is not at all about time management in life at all. It is only about energy management, because in that same 24 hours, somebody has already cracked the code. Somebody is already there, somebody has done the successful thing. So why you and me cannot do it? Because we cannot manage our energies. And that energy management is the key when you do these boxing methods.
So, like we ourselves in a busy clinical hours, how do we manage this energy boxing by those, as you said, ki clinically defined hours? Is this the
Correct.
way we should, like, no attending of phone calls or no social media during that?
Correct. No, I mean, phone calls is still, I think, unavoidable because of the
That,
emergencies and all.
yes,
But
yes,
yes, no social media at that time, no combining. For example, if I have to write a book, now if I am with the clinical practice and then suddenly I go back to the book, then getting back. So the efficiency of the brain is always compromised when I have to go from one task uncompleted or incomplete to the other task, which is again
yes,
incomplete. So until and unless the brain does not complete that task, the efficiency and also the reward, there's always a reward loop which also gets activated in the brain. So the people who understand this formula, that okay, there is a Parkinson's law, I need to give a certain time to the task, I sit there at that time and complete that task with my full attention and focus, I get my efficiency sorted, I get a reward, then that entire loop, then the brain learns about it, then there is no problem whatsoever. And that's where all the Pomodoro technique and all the techniques were also born with the same fundamental of efficiency. Basically, it is about the neuronal performance efficiency, what we call NPE in the brain.
As far as you know, you conduct certain courses also for
Yes.
informing that. That is the
Yes.
same thing, N NPE.
So correct. So we do a lot of performance coaching because when I so basically it all came from my story. I was, as you mentioned, beautiful. Yes, all my intellectual capacities were amazing. Got some gold medals. Was working with United Nations. Got into the best universities. Got the scholarship. Everything was fine. But a time came in my life when I had an emotional crash. So I had a very, very, very dear friend of mine, very dear, and 27 years of a relationship. And something very small happened and we separated our paths. And that was very painful for me, because 27 years when you live with somebody, it's so difficult to get away from that, right? So I'm wondering, oh, how will my holiday go, what will happen, how will this happen? So it was very, very painful, and that was the first time when I significantly felt that, look, I know everything about the brain, but I'm not able to help myself. I'm so much emotionally down. So I had to somewhere understand that how do I lift myself. So I still remember, and being a clinician, being a science person, you're always about measuring and monitoring, because you want to be very clear on what is happening behind the scenes. So 981 days literally I spent in this trauma, that how do I come out? It was rumination, only thinking about the past. This is, why should I have done that, or why should she would have done that, and why this, and miserable present. Most of the times our lives are miserable because either we live in the past or we live in the future.
Correct.
None of them is going to serve you. It's like, somebody said very beautifully, I think it was Monica Singhalji from Hariom Smiles. She said past is waste paper, tomorrow is a question paper, and today is a gift paper. If we don't use it present, life becomes a tissue paper, which is so true, because question paper or waste paper पे ही अपन काम करते रहते हैं. And today's newspaper, we are not interested in the news. So that is what we need to be aware. Now, so when that happened, I had to pull out myself. And then, I started to go to the ancient wisdom. I said, look, there has to be something which will pull me out of this. And that was the first time when I started to understand how to scan a normal person, not so-called, mental illness, to understand what is happening in the emotional system. So the limbic system, what is the firing which is happening, prefrontal cortex, what is happening. Clearly, what I was demonstrating was that my prefrontal cortex was shut. So always the prefrontal cortex and the limbic works like a seesaw. When your prefrontal cortex is very sharp, you can see things clearly, you are at ease, you know exactly the decision making process, you're very sure of what is happening, then your emotional system is always calmed or toned. Now for me, the emotional system was so much fight, flight, fear, freeze, it was so heightened that my prefrontal cortex was not working. So I had to change this equation. And I stumbled upon, luckily, a professor who was doing functional MRI, got my functional MRI done because I went to US and they were studying romantic breakups. I literally barged in and I said that, look, I have a childhood friendship breakup. Why don't you study my brain, And the professor said you'll have to spend some $25,000 doing the entire suite of QEG and your functional MRI. I said, really does not matter. I want to know about these two circuits. What is really happening in them? And I got my functional MRI, got my QEG, and very quickly I understood that, oh, yes, this is the problem. When the prefrontal cortex is not functioning well, there will be lots of emotional trauma, there'll be lots of patterns, there'll be a lot of things which you will keep on doing again and again, and you will not find success. So my job, and I told the professor, I said, look, next year I'll come back and I will fix this and come back. And he immediately said that I think you should go to a psychiatrist, because that's how the US understands. And I said, no, I'm not going to a psychiatrist. Neither am I going to a psychologist. I'll go back to the ancient wisdom. I'll pick up the meditations. I'll pick up the breathing techniques. I'll pick up everything which takes to get this sorted. Now, when I started to do meditation first time, very difficult, right? I mean, it's not something which you just close your eyes and it happens. It was
Yes.
so difficult. And oxygen, I mean, breath work when I started to do pranayam was such a difficult So I was not really doing it, let's put it that way. And I had a very short time when I had to learn all this, because if I go the route of knowing the entire yoga, knowing the entire meditation science, my life would have gone. So I started inviting people to the lab who were successful, who were peak performers, who were top in their game. And I started to interview them, started to see their brain scan. So we do now something called the neurosense, which is an electroencephalogram, which shows a lot of parameters. And that was built with, our need of understanding what is going on in their brains. So when I started to scan them and I started to interview them, every person started to talk about resilience, started to talk about wiring of the brain, started to talk about how every hour needs to be efficient, how we need to disconnect and detach from the past, how do we make our future visualization. So slowly all the movers components started to make sense. And personally, I started to take up one or two practices, started to do it very consistently. And every 15th day, 16th day, I was again do another EEG to see what is happening. And to my surprise, certain chantings changed the way the brain was functioning. Certain humming bee technique changed the way how my gamma was coming. And I'll talk about the brain waves also, because it was very, very fascinating for me. The moment I started to get this data, we started to do an extensive review of literature. And very quickly, we started to start a research team and said, okay, now we will study each of these ancient practices, because there's something very good hidden into it. And that's how the whole labs concept and everything was formed. Luckily for me, in a couple of years, I was able to switch and turn the table. And that was the first time I understood as a neurologist. Yes, I knew everything about the brain, but I could not control the mind and the brain when it came as a life situation. But the mathematical formula was understood that if you try to balance this in the context of memory, in the context of life circumstances, busy people, everything, this is all that the formula is. The moment you can, and this is a very important statement, so I'm going to say it a little slowly. The moment you are able to make your subconscious and unconscious conscious, life begins to happen. Most of the times, 95%, it's our subconscious which is processing. So everything is happening as a habit, everything is autopilot. Most times we are not mindful, we are not aware. The day we start to consciously take the control of the 5% of the mind, things get sorted.
Very beautifully explained and really mesmerizing to listen to your story and its connections. Very, very impressive. Now, I would like to definitely know about those brave waves, but before that, just one question coming to my mind. You also mentioned it about the effect of sleep, the hormones, the gut health, the micronutrients like multivitamin, etc. So, you talked about the brain fog also and the brain. So, do they affect? How do they affect? And what happens actually?
Beautiful. So sleep is the quintessential thing when it comes to memory, when it comes to preservation of brain cells. Sleep has a very important system called glymphatic system, which gets activated. So the moment you're sleeping enough, this glymphatic lymphatic system takes away all your toxins, all the amyloid and the tau and everything which gets formed in the brain. So for the activation of the lymphatic system, you need to be sleeping in a certain time when your melatonin is at the peak, which is somewhere between 11 to 11:45, and most times we miss that peak, because then only you get into that deepest of the state and then activate the lymphatic system. So enough hours, enough quality of sleep, enough sleep efficiency, sleeping position, mostly lateral position, not mouth breathing, because then also your quality of sleep is compromised. A lot of people, children we see, when they are mouth breathers, we have more attention deficit that we find in them. People with nasal septal deviations, we see a lot of personality disorders because of the lack of oxygen which is going in the brain and then influencing the prefrontal cortex. So sleep is making sure that all these restructuring of the chemicals, consolidation of memory, repair, rejuvenation, everything is happening. And the initial first half is non-REM, and the second half is REM, which is rapid eye movement. So the non-rapid eye movement is a deep sleep, like where you really go deeper. And then in the rapid eye movement, you have all your eyeballs moving, you move as well, all the dreams, etc., and all happen in the REM. In the first half, most part of your sleep should be non-REM. And in the second half, most part should be REM. Now, if people compromise the initial, let's say the sleeping time is 11 और उसके बजे सोते हैं 2 बजे, तो you got compromised on the non-REM. And if they wake up early, let's say you had to get up at 8 o'clock, 8 hours of a sleep, and you start to wake up at 5 o'clock, then you compromise on your REM. Both the compromises have been shown to have a deleterious effect in the brain, right from attentional issues to memory problems to issues also of irritability, anger, emotional regulation. Pretty much all the circuits of the brain get impacted. The reaction time, the grogginess, the fog that you get up in the morning, fibromyalgia, fatigue, you name it, and everything is connected to the depth of the sleep. However, there is also a yogic technique and yogic way of it. So I always say, have you ever seen Narendra Modi ji sleeping? We never, he's always up there everywhere. It's not that he needs rest and all, and most other top performers also, because there are ways in which you can hack the sleep deeper. And for that, Yoga Nidra forms a very, very important tool. And now the scientists and the rishis, I call them scientists beyond scientists, because they really knew how to hack every single that non-REM and REM and pack it into a 45-minute cycle, which is equivalent to a 3 to 4 hours of a sleep. So
Wow.
that is the beauty of the sleep. Now, of course, we'll talk about it if time permits, because we have done some amazing work in that area. Then comes your, as you rightly mentioned, your diet, nutrition, because the gut-brain axis is a very, very important axis. Now, most times, whatever we feed, that's why I say, the food on the table becomes the mood in the mind. The mood in the mind becomes what you are as a character. What you are as a character and personality determines your destiny, and whatever is your destiny is the fruit and the results that you get. So the food on the table is directly proportional to the outcomes that come in. And most times we are not particular about what we feed. We are not mindful eaters. मतलब जब खाना खा रहे हैं तो this 100 things which is happening, TV चल रहा है, phone चल रहा है, किसी से बात चल रही है. So there was a study which was done that how the slow and mindful eating, the body's metabolic responses, even to a high fat food, will change completely. So that will not have an impact of having a very high spike in cholesterol levels because it was a high saturated food content, if it was taken slowly, if it was taken mindfully, if it was taken with a deep intent of it serving your body. So having that mindful eating is very important. Diversity. Most times we as doctors, suffer from, because we don't get time to eat, right? I mean, that's the silliest thing that happens to all of us, rushing, running. And if you look at the Western lifestyle, it is always about grab and go. So that grab and go is never a good idea, because then you're not serving that type of the mind which is required to assimilate that food. Now, diversity, I personally was very shocked because we started to do a study on microbiome, gut microbiome, and the QEEG findings in 25 volunteers. And I was the first volunteer. I said, take my samples and let's see what is happening. The gut microbiome score, we check it as a diversity between 0 and 8 in stool sample. Between 0 and 8, good is 8, 0 is bad. Mine was only zero point 0.5. And I said, oh my God, what am I doing? And diversity is extremely important for producing all different chemicals. So your serotonin, your butyrate, your phenylalanine, all the precursors of the gut hormones, which is going as neurotransmitters, is happening from those bacteria, and those bacteria are missing. So when I looked at that, and then I went back to my diet habit and all, and I was a person who would eat the same food pretty much every single day, 365 days, no change. So if it's khichdi, it's always khichdi, and I thought it was very healthy, that I don't take so many this and all. But to my surprise, then reading a lot about the gut diversity, 50 to 60 different raw items in a week is must. So then, I had to change the entire this. So I started to build something called the 11 salads and 22 salads and 33 salad. कि एक salad में ही 33 items डाल दो, काम खत्म, all your nuts and all your pine seeds and all your raw veggies and all your olive oil and everything goes into that. Fermented food is a very, very healthy and important food, which was missing in my diet despite being a Gujarati. So that's why South of India, if you see, people are very, very healthy because of the fermented food that they take. So I started to include that. The moment I started to do that, a lot of changes happened. My sleep started to get better, my mood started to get better. So people who have been having this gut and nutrition is extremely important. There is no second thoughts on that. In fact, I'm sure estrogen के लिए भी, certain berries are very important. I think
Yes,
raspberry,
cranberries and
strawberries,
blueberries.
all those gooseberries, and all those have essential soya and certain eggs. And so all this, we have to be knowing at what part does it play in a certain time of our lives. Now, when the child is very, very young and the brain is all forming, etc. and all, it is very important to supplement precursors of dopamine, precursors of serotonin, acetylcholine. Then as we go little bit, as the age advances, the main memory molecule is acetylcholine. So everything which is happening, and that's why omega-3 becomes a very important thing. Ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Now, most times we keep taking omega-3, but if I take omega-3, let's say as a capsule, 1 gram, and if my omega-6 consumption is also here, and omega-6 is pretty much all the fried food, all the saturated fats, everything that we take, and our diets are huge in omega-6. So if it is here, then it nullifies. I don't have any benefit of omega-3. So until and unless I'm able to have the ratio and proportionate omega-3 as compared to my omega-6, it again plays no role. There's no point. Then as a little bit more advancement happens, we need some neurogenesis. We have to have certain new brain cells. And for a new brain cells to function, we need mitochondrial support. We need that iron. We need to keep the cell functional with mitochondrial capacity. So CoQ10 becomes very important, creatine becomes very important, iron becomes very important. So all these are the nutritional elements which supports the brain growth. And it's very, very intuitive and natural as to what you keep supporting. And then comes the most important, I think, thing, which is relationships. Now, there was a big study which was done where most people with memory dysfunction, just about 50, most of them had social isolation. So it is extremely important that the relationships natural and not really virtual, but the actual and real that we keep in our life. Now, as we sort of, progress in life, I mean, good old days were good because that was the time when everybody would gather and there used to be a large family parties and so many things
Yes.
used to happen. But right now, we are going back to nuclear and sub-nuclear and sub-sub-nuclear families. So this becomes a challenge. And most times, we don't allow multi-sensory stimulation. Now, this is a very important concept when it comes to preserving the memory or preserving the brain health. Every week I go to, we have Lulu and all the shopping here, Carrefour. So I make it a point that I go to Carrefour, and then everybody says that, but why do you have to do that? I said, I don't have to do it. I'm preserving my brain. You go ahead and smell, you go ahead and see the colors, you touch the texture. Every week you should have one mega dose of multisensory stimulation, which is very different and distinct. So sometimes, you go to a bakery where you're smelling different things. Sometimes you go to something which is color and flower shop. This is keeping the brain active. Now, a lot of people also say, oh, Sudoku and puzzles and all that. The moment the brain learns a certain technique of how to do it, that's it. Then the brain's thing is over. So you have to then keep on increasing the challenge. If I did
Newer
level
and
one,
newer
then I go to
challenge.
level two, then I go to level three. And digital exposure in doing all of this is a big, big, big no. In fact, we did a very small trial, and this was our women, of between 50 and 65, where we asked them to play a certain card game. So there were again 25 volunteers, and we set their baseline mocha. So we did a mocha, and then we did some digital memory assessments, and we did some also PSS, the perceived stress scale. And we also did a neurotransmitter collection of the urine sample. So we often combine a lot of parameters to see what is happening in the brain health. And we told them that, pick up any hobby which is very new to you. You have never done that in the past. So somebody took up gardening, somebody took up bridge game, somebody took up playing chess, and something which they had to learn, and playing a new instrument. And these were, remember, all so pretty much, after the age of 40. So they were in the perimenopausal, in that age group. All of them then were studied for 3 months, and something very interesting came in. And then we wanted to see which hobby topped when it came to the performance of brain health measures. Where did the higher scores come in? And do you want to guess where the highest score would have been? The
Mm,
maximum score came in for people with learning a new musical instrument. So
musical.
learning a new musical instrument was able to add all these parameters. And then second one was playing a Scrabble, which was a challenging Scrabble. The third one was playing bridge and other card games. So there was always, and then there was a fourth, which was in the sports. So every single time we have to understand that a new challenge is growing new brain cells. Whatever you are firing is wiring, and whatever is wired is fired. So it's a very simple analogy in the brain.
Mm. Actually, it's a simple analogy, but at the same time very complex also to understand. But you have cleared it a lot, and I think there are so many questions I have and so many things I want to ask. But I think I would love to know more about the brain waves before I go
Sure.
to other thing. That is
Yes.
because everyone should learn more about them and
Yes.
how to.
And everybody from the school age should learn. There was this young 16-year-old who was sitting with me, and I said that, look, you learn science, you learn physics, you learn mathematics. Did anybody teach you how to breathe? We were never taught the essentials. In fact, most of us breathe very wrong, right? We never use the diaphragm for breathing. In the same way, most of us are never taught the basic manual of brain's function. It's like the basic SOP, the brain operating protocols. And we know much more about iPhone than we know about our brain's operating protocols. So these five brain waves are sort of the pillar of our operation. The first one is beta. As I am talking, you are intently listening. There is a fast frequency called beta which is happening. The moment I close my eyes, a slow sinusoidal rhythm called alpha is formed, anywhere from 8 to 12 hertz. Now, in menopause and perimenopausal women, there has been a alpha deficit which is shown. The peak alpha, when I close my eyes, a peak alpha forms. And this peak alpha is anywhere between 8 and 12. For peak performers, we see 13, 14. And in one of the studies, it was an anecdotal, it was my own case analysis where I wanted to increase the peak alpha. Nothing was happening because I wanted to increase the speed of reading. I wanted to read 3 books a day. And peak alpha has been shown to improve cognitive performance. There's a beautiful, beautiful paper from Bihar. I'm not remembering the name of the author, but a lovely paper on how peak alpha frequency is directly correlated to speed of reading and comprehension. So I was doing that, and Gayatri Mantra helped me to push that. So after 3 months of consistent Gayatri Mantra, I was able to get a very good peak alpha. Peak alpha drops when it comes to perimenopausal age also. So it's our important this to increase it, to be mindful and aware. Then comes theta. Just before I go to sleep, it's a slow rhythm called theta. When I fall off to sleep, it's the slowest rhythm called delta. And out of all these four waves, there is one special brain wave which is very, very fast beating, 50 to 100 hertz. It's called gamma. Now, whatever place the gamma fires in, it optimizes and amplifies the function of that area. If it's prefrontal, then all the prefrontal cortex gets amplified. So gamma forms sort of the super brain wave, or which is like a performance wave of most optimization which one can have. Now, a lot of people, all of us, as regular individuals, we don't fire so much of gamma because we don't do things which fire gamma. In fact, our alpha peak frequency also, as the generation goes, is dropping because we never allow ourselves to consciously produce alpha. Either I have to close my eyes. Nobody sits with eyes closed for 5 minutes a day, also. I have to be walking barefoot on the ground. Most of us are with slippers. I have to listen to alpha frequency, which we have built also in limitlessbrainacademy.com. We have given a lot of frequencies just so that it's an easy peasy pill. It's like a 2 minute Maggie, right? You just listen to the frequency and drop it in. And alpha also gets formed when you are with nature. So you are doing gardening, and any activity and exercise with nature increases the alpha. Now all this has become out from our life. So alpha deficit, excessive beta, no gamma, and the delta's depth has also reduced tremendously in the sleep. And theta, though, forget it, because theta you get it only during meditation and deep creative work and the state of flow. We barely get into that. So theta actively is another impossible task that we don't do it in our regular life. Now, power of each of these brain waves decides how well our brain functions and performs. So in our assessment system called neurosense, we have given all these powers and we have customized. So for example, for Dr. Pandey, this is gamma is missing here. What are the activities we give for optimizing that function? And everything is very simple, as you rightly mentioned, but then something we have to do about it, right? Once I know, then what am I doing about it? Because it is never about the supply, it is always about the apply.
Yes, it is more important that to apply is very important, and that's will finally
Correct.
give you some result. So much to ask
If
actually,
people
and so
have
much to
gamma,
learn. But
yeah, no, if people would have gamma, if people would have a very peak alpha, developed alpha peak, if they are able to modulate when eyes close alpha, when eyes open no alpha, no perimenopausal symptom can hit. And I'm damn confident that no amnesia, no memory challenges, no attention and focus, because all of this was designed in such a way in the good old days that everything that we were doing was able to protect all these brain waves, and that's why I think the brunt of also the menopausal problems, the brunt of the fertility issues, the brunt of mental illness that we are seeing right now,
which is
and
very
the
much
brunt of
increasing.
atrovascular conditions is all at the peak because we have forgotten all the natural mechanisms of restoration.
Correct, correct, correct. As time is less, I told you I want to learn, no, and I want the audience also to know so much, but the time is less. So I'll just go back to two things. Like in sleep, as you said, we know the nows, the how much the sleep is affecting. Like supposing some persons are given those medicines for sleep restoration, tranquilizers and all that, so, will they affect or help into getting those waves or into the NREM and REM phases or healing of the brain and lymphatic system, or they don't?
Beautiful
Just a
question. So I think you are intending to benzodiazepines or to sedatives which are given, or
yeah,
hypnotics.
clonazepam and
Clonazepam, and yes, so hypnotics, which will induce the sleep. Now,
yeah,
also people use a lot of dietary supplements. So magnesium has been used as a
magnesium,
sedative
melatonin.
hypnotic. Then melatonin, 5 milligrams, has been used. So now the studies have shown that BZDs do allow you to have a restorative sleep, but it's temporary. After that, there is a rebound insomnia, which can be even more dangerous than you having the insomnia in the initial phase. And that's why benzodiazepines are never given beyond 2 to 3 weeks. They are always for short-term use. Now, these supplements, melatonin, for example, was never built for treating insomnia. It was always for jet lag and, clock setting. So whenever you want to reset your clock, it was always a good way to do it. And hence, coming back to the thing that temporarily, let's say I'm facing severe menopausal issues and I don't sleep at all, in that severe insomnia, it is justified to use a natural supplement plus a short-term hypnotic to try to rebalance the sleep cycle, but not for a longer period of time. In fact, for a longer period of time, the cancer incidence has also shown to be high in people using more hypnotic. I think the upper cut in one of the beautiful papers where there's a lovely forest plot which has shown that the upper level is somewhere 105 tablets a year. When that crosses in, then you start to, in fact, increase the cancer incidence also multifold.
Okay. I think
Now, naturally, what can you do? As I said, Yoga Nidra. Now, the beauty of Yoga Nidra is you go very deep into the delta, very fast. It's like a literal plunge into the delta. Otherwise, you lie down, then you get into little alpha, then you get into the theta, and then you get into the delta. The latency of going into the delta is just super fast. It's almost immediate. And the time that you spend in the deep sleep is optimized. So we had these 5 jet setters whom we took in, as a study, and these jet setters were very busy businessmen and they all were wearing the aura ring. So we invited their aura ring. We took a sample day from each of it randomly for the time that they were traveling. In a 7 hours of a sleep, their average deep sleep was 45 minutes. We just meaned it. There was an average which was taken for all those 5 people. And then we invited them to do the Yoga Nidra session for 35 minutes of a Yoga Nidra session, all the 5 people, and the mean of deep sleep came to be 31 minutes. Now imagine 7 hours, 45 minutes of a deep sleep, 35 minutes and 31 minutes of a deep sleep. So it is just a remarkable way in which you can wire the brain. It's literally like a little brain gym. You just go delta, then you come out in theta, then you go to gamma, you come in alpha, and then you close in delta. But yes, a correct technique is very important. The way in which it is conducted is very, very important. I mean, there are so many people just doing yoga nidra. It has to be done in a proper yogic method.
okay. So very, I mean, lot to learn from you, lot to learn in this, and really good habits are important. So just last two questions because again the time has gone. Tell me or tell us what is one non-negotiable brain health habit which you personally practice every day. And
Beautiful
the last
question.
time will be that what message you will like to share with midlife women and doctors, like professionals like us, who are struggling with overburden, forgetfulness, self doubts, and so and so.
Right. So I'll come back to the first question. The non-negotiable for me, and that has served my brain health because all the parameters, God's grace is good. That is the morning, the I would say the holy morning. Your first thing that you do in the morning will decide the rest of your day. Whatever you do in the day will decide what will happen in the week. The week will decide your month will decide the year and your life. So the very first hour is something which is very, very important. When you're in deep delta, never immediately stress yourself into waking. I don't use an alarm clock. I put an intent to wake up. I don't immediately see the phone for at least 60 minutes. No phones, no disturbance, no calls, nothing. I go and take my sunlight for 5 minutes. That is again a non-negotiable thing because once that sunlight hits your circadian, your suprachiasmatic nucleus, your next day's night becomes sleep, becomes proper. That is extremely important. No coffee, no stimulant for at least 60 minutes. The first hour, nothing. I do 5 minutes of alpha, which means I am closing my eyes and sitting. I do 10 minutes of theta, which is taking up any meditation which just randomly comes to me. And very, very important in the morning, before I start my day, read something which is extremely positive, something which will help me to sort of, keep me in the subconscious, which is very affirmative. Or I just pick up a random book. I have a beautiful library and collection of books. So just go to the library, pick up any page that comes in and try to sink in. Whatever you sink in, links in. And the very first thing that you sink in, links in for the entire day. So that is my non-negotiable routine. Now, your second question is us as doctors, very busy life. And so I think we don't have to be busy. We just have to be easy.
कहना
That is
चाहिए वो
the
सूत्र दीजिए जिससे कि लाइक
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिजी होना जरूरत ही नहीं है, बिल्कुल इजी होके सब कर सकते हैं. इट इज अबाउट us dissociating ourselves. So brain is a powerful instrument, mind is a powerful instrument, but anything that goes emotionally. So I am stressed, I have so many deadlines, I have so many patients to be seen, hundreds of calls come in. The moment I live my life within my brain and the mind, everything will go psycho, neuro, physio, immuno, endocrinology. It will hit me as an axis. My stress hormones will go high, my cortisol is fired, adrenal fatigue comes in, my sleep is gone for a toss. So we have to dissociate, we have to detach ourselves from what is happening in our life. We don't run the brains, allow the brains to run us. We have to run the brain. So I can't sit on a driving seat and I have a steering wheel and say that take me wherever I need to have the control. So I need to be dissociating myself, looking at my brain and my mind and saying I'm going to guide you and you will go where you want. So it is about taking a pause, taking a breath, evaluating what is happening in your life, and slowly detaching from the nitty-gritties of what is required every day and the outcomes. I strongly feel that doctors are very, very privileged souls, very privileged individuals. And the moment we give the control back to the good Lord, where we consider ourselves as the medium, everything settles. So I joke and I say, I'm a DHL, I am a divine help limitless. So I just remain as a medium, let it come and let it go to our patients.
Yes, very, very beautiful. And the most important thing which I also loved it, like you told the importance of Gayatri Mantra and like those, I've also heard that Sanskrit also helps
Yes,
into your taking care of your memory and brain fog and the learning developing neuroplasticity and all that.
yes. In fact, hippocampus, the one which is responsible for your memory, and associated amygdala, which is for your emotion, the wiring between hippocampus and amygdala and the volume of hippocampus strengthens if you learn certain Sanskrit chants. So this has been shown by a beautiful study by Professor Herzl, a lovely study, where all this is documented how the volume improves in the pandits who were able to chant the Sanskrit stotras.
Very beautiful, and it was a very nice interaction. I loved every thing throughout us. I am sure my audience must have also learned a lot, and many queries must have solved, and the rest of the queries, I'm sure they will be able to find from you. And thank you very much, Dr. Shweta. And I think so. You should develop some courses for these midlife women and tell us about them. That
Yes, yes. We
how
already
they
have it,
can
ma'am.
grow.
We have neuro memory, we have neuro performance, we have neuro manifestation, everything which is available on limitlessbrainacademy.com.
Okay, so I'm sure my audience, please note this and you will be able to get all the information. So thank you once again, and thank
Thank you,
you,
ma'am.
Dr. Our Dr. Sunita has joined from the audience link. So I thank her once again for this wonderful opportunity. I'm sure Dr. Shweta will meet somewhere else again,
Definitely, ma'am.
either
Definitely. Thank
in
you to all the
Kanpur
audience.
or
And
in
yes,
Dubai or in Mumbai, wherever it is
Gigi,
possible.
ma'am. Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice. Good day.